Hi everyone, I'm Jeff Munroe from Middlebury, underway with the Collector's Tour in the fall of 2024. People often ask me teasingly, which is my favorite collector? And it's an impossible thing for me to answer because honestly, I like the locations of all of these. I enjoy going back to them. They mean a lot to me after all these visits over the years. But if I was really pressed, if you said I absolutely had to decide, if you demanded that I had to pick one collector above all the others, I think I would say this one, Dust 4. Dust 4, yeah. What is it about Dust 4? It's one of the very first ones I put out. 1st of July, I think it was, back in 2011. So it's been here a long time. It's an incredibly remote location. It is really quite an epic to get here. It's quite a feeling of accomplishment to arrive at this spot. It's the longest hike to any of the collectors. It's the highest elevation collector. It's snowing on me now, which is fitting because this is a particularly harsh setting. So I like them all, but I guess my secret's out. If I had to pick one, I would say Dust 4 is my favorite. Please don't tell the other collectors. It's something else that people often ask, also innocently, is, so where's the dust coming from? This is like the ultimate question in any kind of dust study, any study where someone's collecting dust or removing dust, from a natural archive like a soil or something else. Where did it come from? Seems like an easy thing to ask, not an easy thing to answer necessarily. If it's a short-term event, if it's like a dust storm that sweeps through in an afternoon, then you can look at satellite imagery and you can track it back and see where the dust originated. There's some really fancy modeling that can be done too to reconstruct how the air masses have moved going back in time and see where likely dust sources might have been. But when your collector's out for months or years at a time, making a composite of all kinds of different dust depositional events, saying where did it come from is certainly not a straightforward thing to answer. One thing I have tried though with Dust 4 and several of the other collectors in the network is looking at the geochemistry of the dust, looking specifically what we would call an isotope fingerprint in the dust. Fingerprint's pretty straightforward. It's something that would be unique and identifying about the dust. And isotopes, without going into too much detail, think of them as different flavors of an element. Like oxygen is a familiar element, and it comes actually in 3 different isotopes. You and I can't tell the difference between them. They seem to operate the same as far as we're concerned, but in the lab, you can tell the difference. So several times now, I've actually had students from Middlebury go out to my alma mater, the University of Wisconsin in Madison, to do some really sophisticated chemistry in the laboratory there to analyze the isotopes of 2 trace elements that are present in the dust. Trace elements means they're there and we can detect them, but they're not abundant. They're really in the background. So students looked at isotopes of strontium and neodymium, 2 trace elements that are in all these dust samples. And what's really neat about that is if you measure the isotopes and you figure out the ratio between different isotopes of strontium and neodymium, that's essentially a fingerprint for the dust. That's something that's immutable and doesn't really change with weathering. It's something that theoretically would allow you to track the dust back to a location on the landscape that has that same fingerprint and serves as a possible source. Or inverting that, it at least allows you to rule out parts of the landscape that have very, very different isotope values and therefore could not have been the source for the dust. We've done this a number of years now, and it's helped refine our understanding of where at least some of the dust arriving here in northeastern Utah is coming from. There are spots in western Utah, there's spots in central Nevada, and there's spots in the Mojave Desert in southern Nevada and southern California that have the same isotope fingerprint as what we see in the dust that we get in these collectors. So did it come from those locations? Can't say for 100% sure. It probably, what's in the collector is a composite, after all, of multiple different dust delivery events. But certainly enough of it may have come from those locations that fingerprint is maintained when we do the analysis on the dust. So where's it come from? It's an easy question to ask. It's a hard question to answer, but it's an important question to try to nail down. And through the Dust Squared project, working at short time scales with with satellite imagery and atmospheric modeling, or really long time scales with these collector deployments, I think we're slowly making progress in being able to come up with better answers for that seemingly simple question. So with that, and with the snow squall sweeping in, I'm going to get to work on emptying dust 4, seeing what's been going on up here in my absence. Thank you for listening. I'll see you again at the next collector. I am now done with the collectors in the Uinta Mountains. We're going to Idaho next, if the weather holds, for something completely different. Thank you to the National Science Foundation and the U.S. Forest Service. I've said that so many times I got tongue-tied, for their support of Dust Squared. And particularly when talking about this isotope work, thanks to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, specifically Brian Beard and Clark Johnson for working with my first couple of students that came out, and then Annie Bauer and Mike Tapa, who've done an amazing job working with the kind of second wave of students in the last few years. Really appreciate these colleagues welcoming my students into their laboratory and helping them generate such great data and have such an awesome learning experience. So thanks so much.